Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to join us as we're going to go over the new Allianz Life Accumulator product here with Scott. But before we get started, I just wanted to go over a few things that we offer here at IAMS that's unique to us. My name is Paul Williams. I'm a life sales director here with them. So like I said, before we get started, we're just going to go over a few of these. And the first one that I would like to point out is our new producer bonus. This is a great way for our newly licensed agent over here with us at IAMS to really kick off and build their business, as we do try to create a true partnership here with our agent. And as you can see, as you're producing within the first 180 days here with us, there's great incentives to build your business. There's cash incentives. We can do mailer campaigns. You get prizes like an iPad or, formatted email templates. And the levels, as you're seeing, the more you produce, the more incentives become available to you. And you can use these cash for whatever you want, whether if you want to put it back into your business, if you want to go out and buy something for yourself, whatever it is. But once again, it's just really creating that partnership here with us. And another way that we do that here with IAMS is our IAMS Business Builder program, and we also do a referred producer program. And as you see on the screen, that we give a one-time $50 bonus. It's just a thank you for sending over agents such as yourself to do business here with you. As we all know, referrals are the best contacts that you can have. But on an ongoing basis, the real value that comes with this is you actually get a piece of their business. Small override. It does not affect the comp levels that producer is receiving. It's just another way that we like to say thank you. And I've personally witnessed Steve and Chris and Curtis cut thousands of dollars for checks on this stuff once a quarter. But like I said, anybody that you think would be a great fit for us over here, it is really incentivized to send them our way, and we say thank you for that. And another way is our marketing reimbursement program. So as you see on the screen, we'll pay you $100 towards your marketing for every $100,000 worth of indexed annuity premium that we receive. And that's a separate account. We just keep that to the side. As you're producing, we're funneling money over there for you to use to reinvest back into your business. We do suggest to use some of our marketing that we have over here, but you're not required to. You can use it whatever marketing program that you would like. It's just another great way of us saying thank you. We want you to continue doing business with us and help you grow. And our back office support here at IAMS, we do a really good job. We've put a lot of time and effort in recruiting the right people to really make the ease of doing business with us. We spend hours helping you out doing case follow-up work. We're going to touch the case at once every 72 hours. Make sure everything's flowing. If there's any outstanding requirements, we're going to reach out to you, let you know. We're going to stay in contact with the underwriters, see what we need. We help out, getting APSs, scheduling, paramed exams, and also just with getting the case placed faster. The quicker we get this stuff in, the quicker we can get you paid. And our IAMS website, it's a really good resource if you have not already registered for it, or if you have registered for it and just not real sure how to navigate it, give me a call. I can be reached at 1-800-255-5055, and I'd be happy to do a walkthrough with any one of you out there. But it's great resources. As you can see, we do have, quote tools. We have online forms, marketing ideas. We record all of our webinars and keep them out there for if you want to go back for future reference. You definitely can. And out there on our website, we do have our e-app solutions. So, we try to make it as easy as possible to submit business here with us. And as you can see, we have Luma, Firelight, iPipeline, Sunfire, and it's just a single sign-on platform. So once you do that, you're already registered. When you go back out, just click the button and you're ready to go. And we do have a great creative team over here that can help, build out websites, logos, mailer campaigns, brochures, whatever it is. And these guys really do an amazing job. I mean, they're in this industry. They're not like the IT team that you may have, or somebody building out a website down the road from you. Not saying that they don't do a good job, but these guys are really in front of the industry here. I mean, they know what's going on. They know what's compliant, what looks good, what's going to bring attention to your web page for clients to look at. But if you'd like to schedule an appointment with any of our creative department, give me a call. It's 1-800-255-5055. And once again, I mean, all this stuff is definitely customizable to your needs. So we do offer a complimentary marketing analysis. So we actually sit down, we go through your business model, where you're at, where would you like to be, and we kind of put you on a track here. And once every 90 days, we like to touch base with you, see what's working, see if there's any changes, any modifications that we need to do. And this is something else that our creative team really helps with. It's usually about a 20-page document that we put together with suggestions. I mean, we'll do a website review, all that stuff for you. And our IAMS Wealth Management is been a great sector of growth for us. I mean, we brought them on about 6 years ago. They're doing a really good job. But, if you're placing that business somewhere else or parking it somewhere else, we can help out with that. We've done a great job getting agents passing their Series 65. So if you're interested in that, once again, reach out to me or any one of your sales directors, and we can discuss that. But it really is a good way to make that business more sticky. You're creating more trust with your clients, and just a way to really take a holistic look at the retirement plans and where they're at. And our life and annuity academies, we're actually done with those this year, but I would highly suggest, if you've never attended one, to sign up to attend. We should start doing these again next year around June, July, and they usually run through October. But great way to get in front of some of the industry leading producers out there as they go through what marketing is working for them, what they're seeing, what trends are happening out there. Great way to meet with your peers, bounce ideas off, and as you can see here, I mean, we're going to go through quite a few different topics, but usually the one that hits home the most is definitely going through our different marketing strategies, and the other one with macro tax planning. We have a lot of agents that are really interested in those two. And our trek to Quebec, if you would like to know where you're currently at here with IAMS as far as your points are going, give me a call. And as you see, the 18-month qualification period here, but it's going to be a fantastic trip. And right now we're actually running a double credit for this trip. If you need more information on that, reach out to me. Happy to go through this information with you. And as always, like and follow us on Facebook, as we're constantly posting new content for you to be able to put on your web page or send out to clients or whatever it may be. But that's all I have for y'all today. And from here, I am going to turn it over to Scott, and we're going to go through the Allianz product here.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Paul. And can you see the PowerPoint up there?
Not yet. I'm going to switch this over to you, and you should have access to it.
All right, let's try this again. How about now?
Perfect.
All right, perfect. So thank you very much, Paul. Happy Friday. Good morning, everyone. We have a long, from an Allianz perspective, we have a long partnership with IAMS. And I've been with the company for 20 years. And I was thinking this morning, I bet it goes back about 17 years with Curtis and some of the other individuals at IAMS. Long, strong partnership. and you saw all the things they do for you. And from my perspective, when I'm at a carrier, having the back office support from the FMO as well is super important, because it helps us help you guys, and they just do a tremendous job over there as well. And I saw that trip to Quebec. I think I've actually stayed at that Fairmont. I think it was a top producer, or a $1 million roundtable, or the top producer trip for $1 million roundtable. Fantastic hotel, fantastic city. It's a great way to go see a French city without having to go all the way over to Paris. So hopefully you guys can qualify for that as well. So for today, we're going to talk about the new product, as Paul mentioned. We're also going to talk about index lock, which is a really, really big thing and unique to Allianz. And we're really seeing that thrive right now with the market doing so well with some of our allocation options. And then speaking of allocations, we're going to go through a little exercise in allocations. And at Allianz, we preach diversification, and we're going to go through this exercise that you can do. It's on a webinar, it's not quite as effective as if we're face to face, where I can see a show of hands, but I would ask you to just participate in your own mind here, because I think it really helps sets the stage on how to allocate to these policies, whether it's us or somebody else, another carrier. So we'll go through that exercise as well, talk about a little bit about where we're having some successes in the marketplace as well. So let's get going. So Allianz Life Accumulator IUL, a product we rolled out back in July 16th. So I think we're about 3 months into it now. And the new name, for those of you who are familiar with us, going all the way back to 2011, we had what we started the Life Pro Plus series. And the Life Pro Plus series was on about a 13-year run. And so in July, we retired that name, and now we have the Allianz Life Accumulator IUL going forward. And as we enhance this product, it'll be 1.0, 2.0 to make it very, very easy and simple for you as producers and our clients to understand which version of the product that they have. The biggest pricing adjustments that we made for this product are premium loads. We'll talk about that in a second. Our target premiums. Our target premiums have been above industry standard, regardless of ages. But at the older ages, we found that they were extremely above industry standards, which is all great for you as producers. But the product was not quite as competitive at those older ages. So we brought those kind of back to industry standards. So we're still in line with the industry, but it helped us make the product a little bit more competitive at the older ages. We have a classic bonus that we upped by about 10 basis points to 1%, which used to be 90 bips. It's now 100 bips. We'll talk about that. And then the premium deposit fund rate increased to 6%. That is the highest in the industry. And that is huge. If you think about it, your client can give us a lump sum of money that they can put into the policy, anywhere from 3 to 10 years, they decide. And they're going to earn 6% on that money. And with interest rates starting to decline a little bit, we'll see where all that goes. But 6% is a really, really healthy return for your client. So make sure you understand that. And if you come across the right client, that's a great way to utilize that as well. And then we introduced some new index options, a blended futures and an S&P, which are both lockable indexes. We'll speak more to that in a little bit. We revised our Bloomberg US Dynamic Balance Index, which is also lockable. And then we also introduced what we call an index lock lower threshold, and I'll talk more about that in a minute as well. Unfortunately, we're beyond September 30th here now, so our risk class upgrade program has gone away. We do look to hopefully bring that back at different times as kind of a promotional event. And what that was if you submitted a policy and the client was deemed to be standard non-tobacco or better, no questions asked, we automatically made them preferred plus, and standard tobacco became preferred tobacco. So that went away with any apps submitted after September 30th. but keep your eye out for it because I expect that we will bring that back over time as promotionals, and it's a great way to lock in a rate for your client that they probably couldn't get maybe because of health or body weight, et cetera. As Norm used to say in Cheers, maybe they're a little short for their weight. So more to come on that in the future. All right, so let's just talk about some of the changes that we made with the product that really made the product that much more competitive. And so the first one was the premium loads. Previously, we charged 8% in years 1 through 9. So your client gives us $1,000, we're going to charge 8% of that in years 1 through 9. And then in years 10 plus, we charged 4%. We also had, I'll just kind of describe it as an excise tax on 1035s because this was originally put together back in 2020 when interest rates were really low. And as a carrier, we had to protect against really large 1035s that could potentially blow up our portfolio rate. So obviously with the rates going up now, that was really outdated. And we also saw, as well as our product has done in the marketplace, we saw a big decline in 1035s, rightfully so, because in addition to that 8%, we were essentially charging another 6% on 1035s. And you can do the math on that pretty quickly. It's not super favorable for clients, of course. So the new premium loads now are 9% in year 1, and then 5% in years 2 plus, and there is no excise tax, if you will, on 1035 exchanges. So you can see, yes, we're 1% higher than we were in the first year, but much, much lower in years after that. And you can see, you know, if your client is doing a 5-pay or a 10-pay, anywhere from 15 to as much as maybe 40% less charges over those 10 years with the new product. So the biggest part of the efficiency with the new product, which has created, generally speaking, across the board, 5 to 10% more income for your clients on an annual basis, is really from the changes that we made in the premium loads itself. Other changes that we made, as I mentioned earlier, we adjusted the premium loads, or I should say the target premiums for older clients. Generally speaking, 60-plus-year-olds are the ones that were really high relative to the market, and we brought those back down closer to the industry level. Anything essentially under age 60, we left alone, and those targets are still above industry standards. And so not only obviously is your client getting a great product that produces great income for them, but you as an advisor are being paid well as well, which is very important as well. Also, just so you know, because of the increase in that classic bonus from 90 bips to 100 bips, the max IR rate per AG 49 went down to 6.72 from 6.74. Not a big difference, but it was a slight adjustment. And then, as we mentioned earlier, the PDF rate increased to 6% from 5%, and that is a healthy premium deposit fund rate and the highest in the industry to the best of my knowledge. All right, so let's look at some of the new index options that we brought about here. We really added a couple and then made some revisions on one as well. We introduced an S&P 500 futures index. So this futures ER index essentially mirrors the S&P 500, but here's the key that I really love. First of all, I believe we are the only carrier that has an uncapped S&P 500 that can be locked at any point throughout the year. So this is uncapped. So if the market, and as we know today, the market is doing extremely well, the sky is the limit. You're not locked in at a 10, 11, 12.5% cap like you would be with other carriers. And at any point, if you see the return you like as a client or an advisor for your client, you can lock that gain in automatically as well. It is a pure equity play, no bond component, just an S&P 500. And we'll look at that, how it compares to the normal S&P 500 annual point-to-point in a second. Our Bloomberg US Dynamic Balance Index got a revision. One thing that carriers discovered with volatility-controlled indexes over the last year or so is because of bond volatility, and most volatility controlled indexes are going to have a bond component, but because of that bond volatility, it really hampered the returns of some of these volatility controlled indexes. And so we made a revision and we created a Bloomberg index that now took all bond components out, and it is pure equity components comprised of 80% large cap, 10% small cap, and 10% tech, no bond component. And we'll look at an example how that compares to what we had in a second as well. And then we introduced our blended futures index. Now, we've always had a blended index annual point to point, but because of volatility in the market with option pricing, that annual point to point cap got hit pretty hard over the years. And so we've now introduced a futures index, which is uncapped and again, can be locked. And you can see there the component is 40% a bond component, a 30% S&P futures, a 20% US small cap, and a 10% Bloomberg International equity futures as well. Again, another uncapped strategy that can be locked. So let's look at the S&P 500 here. And the biggest question, because this is technically not the actual S&P 500, but it's the futures S&P, which mirrors the S&P 500 index. And you can see the graph there, because the biggest question for me was how closely does it mirror the actual S&P 500? There would be nothing worse than have the S&P 500 go up 15% and have this futures go up 3%, and your client would be like, what the hell is going on here? So it's very important that this futures index mirrors the S&P 500. And you can see there, the blue line on the graph is your actual S&P 500 index, and the pink or whatever color that is the S&P futures. And you can see it mirrors the S&P 500 index extremely, extremely close. But the difference here is, and we still offer an S&P 500 annual point to point with a 12.5% cap, which is a very healthy cap in this industry. But of course, if the S&P does 20%, your client's going to get 12.5. So with this S&P futures, with an 80% par rate or a 75% par rate, depending on the bonus option your client selects, we'll talk about bonus options in a second, they are going to get an uncapped S&P futures. So assuming these two mirror exactly, if the S&P does 10% with an annual point-to-point cap, you're going to get 10% as a client. With this, you would get 80% of that 10%, which of course would be 8%. But if the S&P does very well like it is this year, let's say it does 20%, your client's going to get 12.5%, of course, because they're going to cap out. But with this, they would get 80% of the 20, which would be 16%, and the ability to lock that index at any point throughout the year. And you can just see historically, this is done very well relative to the S&P 500 cap. These are calendar year numbers. I don't put a ton of stock in them because they're one point in time for each year. But as just a general reference, averaging closer to around 11% versus the 8% that the annual point-to-point cap would average. The blended futures, just point out a couple things here. The blended annual point-to-point that we used to have had an 8.75% cap. So a very limited cap, if the market really performed. So with the blended futures now, we have something that is uncapped. And again, as I've said before, a lockable index. And you can see the averages there, roughly speaking, call it 10.5% versus what was 6.35%. So we feel in addition to giving the client a lockable index, we're also giving them something that has a little bit more upside potential if the market cooperates as well. And then the Bloomberg, as I mentioned, we just revised that because of the bond volatility in the market had really hampered a lot of volatility controlled indexes. So we stripped the bond component out and introduced just equity versions of this. And you can see, if you look at 2023, for example, where the old Bloomberg would have returned around 5% and the new Bloomberg about 13%. Now, being fair, you go back to 2012, you can see the old Bloomberg would have performed better. So this is not a cure-all for every market environment, just really meant to kind of cure what had really kind of hampered some of these volatility controlled indexes most recently. And you can see it looks like it's going to work pretty well for that, but there are going to be years where the old version would have done better as well. Okay, and then just from a bonus opportunity, just to make sure everyone's clear, you have as a client 3 different bonus options. You can pick all 3 of them in any given year, and every year on your anniversary, you have 21 days after the anniversary to make any changes. And these attach to these indexes that we just talked about. So you could really choose all 3 bonuses, those 4 indexes, and literally have 12 allocation options if you wanted to really make it complicated, if you will. But the bonus options that the client can choose are a classic bonus, which is a 1% guaranteed bonus. So if the index does 0, your client is still going to get a guaranteed 1%. We have what's called a bonus option. Now, these last 2 on the right are really what I would refer to as multipliers, because they are multiplying what the index does, meaning that if the index does 0, we know you don't have to be smart at math, whatever bonus times 0 is still going to give you 0. So the bonus option is a 15% multiplier. If the index, for example, does 10%, they're going to get another 15% on top of that, or 1.5%. And then we have the select, which is the most aggressive, which is a 40% multiplier. Again, if the index does 10%, they're going to get another 40%, which would be another 4%. So all in, they would get 14%. But it does come with a 1% annual asset charge on the accumulation value. So if the index does 0, we know 40% of 0 is 0. And as we used to always like to say with index IULs, 0 is your hero. But with the select, it really isn't. Negative 1% is really your hero. So it's important for the client to understand that. You know, there were products in the past that would charge you as much as 7.5% and have these outrageous but mathematically sound multipliers. We just felt that was way too aggressive. We felt a 1% charge was really the max that would be fair to a client, and that 40% multiplier kind of corresponds with that 1%. So if you ask me which bonus option is going to perform best, if you think these indexes are going to do 4 or 5% or better, which they historically have and should, your select option is always going to be your winner. But it does come with a 1% cost. And we know because of AG 49, these 2 multipliers cannot show those multipliers, so they're restricted. So illustratively, they're not going to look best on a piece of paper, even though the select might perform best for your client. The classic, because we can illustrate that guaranteed persistency bonus, is going to look best on paper, even though it might not perform best for your client if the indexes perform. Loan rates, just understand we have a 5% guaranteed index loan that will never change for your client. We could make it better, of course, but we're never going to be able to make it worse. So and I should go back on the bonus options, those are all guaranteed for your client as well. So you have a lot of guarantees in this product. Bonuses that are guaranteed to never change unless we made them better for the client. Index loans locked in at 5% for your client, that will never change. And if they want to do a fixed loan, a 2.91% annual charge up front, credited back 1%. So it's effectively a 2% charge in years 1 through 10, and then years 11 plus, it's a preferred loan. We also know this in the industry, of course, as a wash loan, a 0% cost loan. And again, index loan locked in at 5%. All right, let's talk about index lock. We are the only carrier that has index locks. And this is a great way for your client to lock in returns, whether they think they've got a return that they really like, they think the market's going to go down, the election's coming up, it's going to create, you know, a lot of chaos in the market. Whatever the reason might be for your client, it's a peace of mind to know that they can grab their return whenever they would like. Two ways to do this. You as the advisor or the client can manually lock. You can go out to the website, click on it, lock it in, call our 800 client services number, say, I want to lock it in. Or we can do what's an auto lock, where you as the advisor or the client go out and set up and say, if this index ever gets to this number, let's call it 15%, Allianz, just go ahead and lock it in for me. And that's an option as well. We also have auto renew. So if you set that at 15, for example, and whether you lock it in or not, when you get to your anniversary, we'll just roll that over at 15% again the next year. As long as it hasn't locked in, you can always go out there and change your auto lock number, higher or lower, as long as it hasn't not locked in. And as an agent, just know you have a portal. If you're an agent doing a lot of business, or an IMO like IAMS doing a lot of business, you cannot possibly track all of your clients' policies or all of your advisors' policies. If you're an AFMO with a downline, Paul talked about some of their incentives here to help with their downlines if you have downlines. So we've made it very, very easy for you to go out, you put in your number into the purple box up there, and then you're going to get a display. You have 204 policies pending, you have a whole bunch of annuity policies pending, and down at the bottom there, index lock report. When you click on that, it's going to take you to this screen. And this screen is going to allow you to customize what you want to see for all in-force policies in the middle of their anniversary. First of all, line of business. Now, I've selected this to be life, but it could be annuities or it could be all life and annuities. Index lock status. You can choose to show what's been unlocked. You could also go out there and see who from my downline has locked it in, or from your client. Allocation options, you can choose one specific allocation or all of the allocations that are lockable within it. And then we always default this to 0% for index rate, but you can go in and say, hey, I want to see anything that's at 8% or above, such as I've done here. And then you go down and you click on generate report. And when you do this, and this is a report not for IAMS, but I ran I guess you can see, well, there's a date on here somewhere, September 15th. So I guess that's a little bit over a month ago. And when I ran this report, this is what you see. You're going to see owner name and policy number. Obviously, I've blocked those out for privacy purposes. But then you'll see the allocation option, and I'll show you another screen where we blow this up a little bit. You can see the percentage allocated, the start date and the end date. Those are your anniversary dates, the participation rate for that option, and then what they've earned. So I'll just go to the next screen here, and so you can see this blowing up a little bit. So when I ran this a month ago, this client, the top one, was in the Select PIMCO Tactical Balance Index. Now, I mentioned earlier, some of the volatility controlled indexes have not performed great this year because of the volatility in the bond market. But the PIMCO index for us, which was built by PIMCO, who we own, Allianz owns, that was built really for a rising interest rate environment. So the PIMCO index have done very, very well. And as you can see here, this again was run September 15th. This client, I'm just kind of thinking through this right now, 1024, they just had their anniversary yesterday. But at that time, on September 15th, they were up 22.76%. They could have locked that in. When you lock in, it's always as the close of business that day. So they could have went out there at 9 in the morning and locked it in. And then whatever that index ended up at the end of the day, could have been 22.5 because it could have went down a little bit, could have been 24, right? Whatever the business closes of that day, we would lock that in for them. And also, you can just see all these 20s here. The market is doing very, very well. So these uncapped index strategies are really thriving and really give your client the ability to get something above and beyond the old 10, 11, 12% annual point-to-point type caps that this market had for so long. And that's what's really exciting about these uncapped lockable indexes. The sky is the limit when the market's performing, and the ability for the client to really take control of this themselves as well. When you go out to your own policy, your client's policy, this is what you're going to see here. you're going to see, first of all, what is the rate? So anything that's lockable on a daily basis, we're going to show you where that client's at. In this case, this client with the Bloomberg was doing very well at 17.72%. They had a 40% allocation there, and then 40% of the PIMCO, which was 22.76. Phenomenal. And then they had the blended. The blended you can't see because there's 4 different indexes, so that gets a little bit more complicated to try to calculate. And then you can also see, did that client set any kind of auto renew or upper target auto lock as well? And here you can see this client did not have any auto locks set. Now, I mentioned you can go out and manually lock the policy. So you'd go out and you'd click on that checkbox there for manual lock, and then it would lock it in. But you can also do that auto lock. So in this example, we said this client is at 22.76%. So you could go out and set an auto lock of 24%. So if at any day in the market between now and the anniversary, remember this anniversary was October 24th, and we ran this on September 15th. At any point, if that index would have closed at 24 or higher, we would lock it in. But what I really love, and we've added this to all policies going back to 2011 that have lockable indexes, is this lower target. Here's why I love it. This policy is at 22.76. Yes, you could lock it in, and that would be a fantastic return. But what if I could go out there and say, if this index ever goes down to 20%, Allianz, go ahead and lock it in. And then maybe I do or do not set an upper target so that I let this thing keep running up as high as it can possibly go. So if I set a lower target at 20% and maybe no upper target, I know for sure if the market ever closes at 20 or below, it's going to lock in. Again, end of close that day. So it could close at 19.5, even though you set it at 20, the client would get 19.5. It's not going to deviate a lot from that number, but it could be a little bit lower. But that allows me to let this thing keep going north, if you will, and if the market cooperates, get a 30% return. And if I set this at 20 and did not set an upper lock, and let's say I woke up 2 weeks later and that 22.76 became 27, I could go move my lower lock to 24 or 25. And just think of it as a stop loss, from a market standpoint. So I love this ability for your client to see a number they like, go set a stop loss, if you will, and or set that upper target to help lock that in as well, so you don't have to follow these every single day. And only other thing I would add on the lower target, you want to set it, in my mind, just personal opinion, low enough so that you don't get 1 or 2 little blips in the market and it just automatically locks it in. So if I'm at 22.76, yeah, I would probably set it at 19 or 20% to let the market breathe a little bit and not just automatically lock me in. But again, that's a personal opinion. So this lock has been huge for us. It's peace of mind for the client. It allows the client to take control of their policy and not have to worry that if they have an anniversary on 11/5 or 11/10 right after the election, that something's just going to blow everything up for them. They can take control of their environment and just lock it in or set some parameters and some guardrails, if you will, so they know they're not going to be too far above or below what they currently sit at. All right, let's talk about index allocations a little bit. And this is a little study I want to go through because I think it's important to understand really how hard it is to select what index is going to do best in any given year. So we're going to look at 3 different scenarios that we've already lived. This first one, of course, being 2015. So in 2015, as kind of a reminder, we had continuation of strong growth. 2013, 2014 saw strong and steady equity growth. Everything was good. Interest rates fell in 2014. Volatility began to spike a little bit in late 2014, but the economic forecast was very, very strong for 2015. Maybe as another reminder, let's look at some pop culture from 2015. showing up on the cover of Vanity Fair that year was something titled Call Me Caitlin. For those of you who are old like me, I remember Bruce Jenner in the Olympics in the 70s being on the Wheaties box. Now Bruce became Caitlyn Jenner and was showing up on Vanity Fair magazine. But the question is, which of these 5 indexes, the Bloomberg, the PIMCO, the blended futures, the S&P futures, or the fixed account did best? And remember, again, 13 and 14 were strong years. The forecast for 2015 was very strong. So get an answer in your head and let's see which would have performed best. It would have been the fixed account. Did you say that? If so, congratulations, you were right. If not, yes, you would have got that wrong had you picked any of those other options. 2020, I think we know exactly what happened there. COVID, throughout much of 2019, the market saw steady increases. By the end of 19 and into 20, there were concerns in the market growing over dramatic volatility caused by several events, obviously COVID being one of them. And then we would ask, which one performed best? The Bloomberg, the PIMCO, the blended futures, the S&P futures, or the fixed account. And a little pop culture here, 2020, we were introduced to something called Zoom, where everybody was downloading Zoom, obviously because of COVID. All right, let's see what would have done best. Which allocation would have been most effective? It would have been the blended. So if you said fixed, obviously because the market took a big tank, that would have been wrong. The blended would have been your best option. And then one last one here, 2023, we just lived this. 2022 saw inflation spike on top of market uncertainty. Russia was invading Ukraine, of course. Taylor Swift fans became NFL fans, dating Travis Kelce. Again, which one would have performed best? The Bloomberg, the PIMCO, the blended, the S&P, or the fixed? Your answer would have been the S&P 500. One other just quick way to look at this. If we look at the indexes that we offer in this product, and we go back to 2012, and we can see on a calendar year basis, here's the indexes that would have performed best. Had you had the foresight to actually pick the best index every single year, you would have averaged 18.22%, which of course would have been phenomenal. But I would ask you to look at this a little closer. There is just no way to predict that. I think we all know that. But if you look in 2017, the PIMCO would have performed best at over 35%. What advisor in their right mind would go to their client at the beginning of 2018 and say, Tom, I know we just got 35% last year, but I got a feeling that we should go into the fixed account this year. You're not going to do that. And if you did that, the client would say, you're absolutely crazy. So I point that out because it is almost virtually impossible to pick the best index. And diversification is, in my mind, your best friend. So on that topic, in our software, when we develop this product, your client and you as an advisor can go in and pick any option you want. But we tried to create some strategies that make it easier for all of you to make decisions. And we created really 6 options. 1, 2, and 3 are exactly the same as 4, 5, and 6. We've just added the fixed account to 4, 5, and 6 for a guaranteed return. But we have what's called a conservative strategy, a moderate strategy, and an aggressive strategy. And your client can just go pick in the software that strategy, and it will populate the indexes that we've chose for those strategies. So for the conservative, this is all around our 4 lockable indexes. For the conservative, it's 25% in each of the 4 lockable indexes, and we are using the classic bonus, which is the most conservative bonus, which, as we know, again, is a 1% guaranteed return. So you can see in 2018 and 2022, the market was actually 0, but because of that classic bonus, they would have returned 1%. If they want to take a little bit more risk, we bump up to the moderate. Very simple. the same 25% in the 4 lockable indexes, but now we've chosen the 15% multiplier, which we know if the market is 0, they're going to get 0. Again, 2018, 2022, you can see they would have got 0. I'll just go back in the slide one moment. On a conservative, the average rate would have been 11.79 for these last 10 or 11 years, whatever number of years that is. A moderate, as expected, you should earn a little bit more because you're taking a little bit more risk, 12.26. And then the aggressive, of course, by now you can probably figure out same index options, but we are using the select 40% multiplier. And of course, we know that becomes with a 1% cost. So 2018, 2022 with 0% return, the client would have got a negative 1% return, but the average return is a little over 13%. Obviously gives you your best bump with a little bit more risk. And then if we look at strategies 4, 5, and 6, like I said, it just adds the fixed rate to the return, again, just to help guarantee your client never sees a 0. So if you look at that select or the moderate where we had some zeros in 2018 or 2022, you add the fixed component. It's just another way to get above that 0 for your client to make sure your client never has to see a 0 on their annual statement. And all of these options can be mixed and matched every single year, and every single year on your anniversary, you have 21 days after the anniversary to make any changes on the allocations as well. And then in addition to the great team that you have at IAMS, who does a fantastic job, if you ever need it, just know you have a complete support team at Allianz as well. You got the wholesaling team, you've got case management dedicated, underwriters dedicated, a product and sales training team, new business, of course. It's a whole team approach. And of course, we partner fantastic with IAMS, who's really your first stop to really help support you guys as well. And lastly, but not least, tons of sales materials as well. And Paul and company there can get these out to you. The 6 diversified strategies we just kind of went through using index lock, and then individual pieces on the different lockable indexes. We have all of that there for you as well. So with that, again, I just want to thank IAMS and the great partnership that they have with Allianz and have had for a number of years. And then to all of you, especially if you're writing our product, thank you very much. And for those of you who have not tried it, like I said, we are generally speaking going to show up for those clients looking for supplemental retirement income, 1, 2, or 3 in the marketplace, just about across all age ranges. We do a lot of premium financing, Kaizen, which I know IAMS participates in as well. And where we're really seeing this is just a lot of executive bonus type plans by employers on their employees as well. Seeing a lot of success there. And of course, the index lock being unique to Allianz, the only carrier that does that as well. So thank you very much. I'll turn it back to Paul. If there's any questions, happy to answer any questions as well. Thank you.
Hey, Scott, I really appreciate you presenting that for me, man. Real quick, there was a gentleman that did ask, are these slides going to be available, or are these just for you?
I can send them over to you, Paul, and then you can get them out to whoever would like them. They are certainly available, absolutely.
Awesome, fantastic. I haven't seen any other questions circulate in. I'll give it maybe a minute or two.
Sure.
But no, just kind of recap some of the stuff you said. Allianz does do a fantastic job, especially on their sales desk, of getting information over to you, helping out, case design, all types of stuff. I've used them multiple times. They're a fantastic resource. Well, once again, if anybody has any questions, you can put them over into that box there. Happy to answer them for you. But, if not, if you think of something later on down the road, shoot me an email. It's paul@iamsinc.com, and I'll be happy to get that stuff answered for you. Seems like as of right now, Scott, nothing's come through yet, man. Seems like some of the participants are signing out. Once again, thank you so much for joining me on this webinar. I really appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll see you.